I voted against a budget that slashes care for 40% of Americans. 40% of Americans depend on Medicaid. 1 out of 3 kids in Massachusetts. Just about everyone who's got parents near the end of life, they depend on Medicaid. And why are we cutting it? To make tax cuts for billionaires, to make tax cuts for the biggest corporations in America. Yeah, it was an easy no vote on that.
So what do you do about the debt and the deficit?
Well, actually, we should probably rein them in. And Trump's plan dramatically expands the deficit because of these tax cuts that are totally unpaid for. And what's going to happen, you see this playing out, Chris, is they're going to try to make cuts, but they're going to be painful to Republican districts, so they'll walk a lot of them back. They'll still give this massive tax cut to billionaires and the biggest corporations in the world, that some of which barely pay taxes to begin with. And the first Trump tax cuts weren't paid for. These won't be paid for as well. And so the deficit will expand dramatically. And essentially what Trump is going to do is bankrupt the country the same way that he has a long record of bankrupting his own companies.
So, as you know, and as I know, and as most people watching don't know, there's very little discretionary spending relative to the overall size of the budget. The idea that you can get the debt or deficit down to near anything like zero without touching entitlements is very hard to understand. Do you accept that premise? And if so, is it just convenience for you to say, hey, I want to protect the people who need it now when it's not on your watch because you're not in control?
No, it's not convenience when the money is going to pay for tax cuts for billionaires. Because that's the way, you know how businesses work. You've got revenue and expenses. If you want to spend a lot of money on tax cuts, so billionaires aren't paying taxes anymore, we've got to make up for that somewhere, and they're going to cut services for one out,
I get it.
4 out of 10 people
you win the
in
argument,
America, right?
Tax cut for rich people versus screwing poor people. I get it. You win the argument. I'm saying if they weren't going to extend the tax cuts.
It's not even poor people. It's a lot of people in the middle class, Chris. It's a lot of people in the middle class. Well, 4 out of 10 Americans aren't poor.
No.
There are a lot of people in the middle class here who depend on Medicaid.
I'm with you. It depends on which bucket of Medicaid and how much money they make. And I totally get it. And what the match is with the state and the Fed. It's complicated, but I get it. What I'm saying is, if they weren't doing the tax cuts, but they wanted to make the same cuts in spending, would you be in favor of it?
I think there's responsible cuts to be made in spending. Absolutely. Look, I sit on the Armed Services Committee. I have been a constant critic for my entire time in Congress of how the Pentagon spends money. Now, I don't think we should be sending troops to the border. That's how Trump wants to spend Pentagon money. What I think we should be doing is modernizing to meet the threats of the next century. I mean, look at what's going on in Ukraine. You've got $5,000 drones killing $5 million tanks, and we still own a bunch of $5 million tanks. We spend $13.5 billion on aircraft carriers that are basically just big sitting ducks for Chinese missiles. So those are places where we should be modernizing, and you could actually save a lot of money if we did that. That's an example of where I'm perfectly willing to cut government budgets. But that's not what they're doing. DOGE is not making government more efficient. It's making government non-existent. It's completely unaccountable. They can't get out of their own way. They just had to retract their top 4 or 5 big savings because they were fraudulent on their own website. In other words, they were posting fraudulent numbers. And so this is not the way that you make the government more efficient.
But it makes it seem like you're defending the status quo and not wanting to find all of the pork that people hate.
No, Chris. That's not fair, because I just gave you a whole bunch of examples of where I would change the budget. I focused on the Pentagon because, as a Marine vet, that's been my focus on the national security, on the Armed Services Committee. But there are a lot of places where I'm perfectly willing to modernize our government, to make it more efficient, to make a lot of cuts, and save taxpayer money. We should all be in favor of that. But make no mistake, that's not what this unelected billionaire sitting in the White House, who my Republican colleague barely even acknowledged is in charge of DOGE, that's not what he's doing. He's just raining chaos and trying to make government not exist. He fired a whole bunch of people who were in charge of bird flu, trying to actually bring egg prices down. Then they had to rehire them. He fired a whole bunch of people in charge of nuclear weapons safety. and then had to suddenly rehire them because they didn't even realize what they had done. So this reign of chaos from someone who's unelected, who has no accountability to Congress, that's not the way you make government more efficient.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.